Welcome everybody to today's Orange County IDA and then after this, the Orange County Capital Funding Corp meetings on 5/18/2021. In order to start the meeting, I'd like everyone to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. John, Bill, you want to go ahead and call the roll and make for the attendance?
Yes, sir. Michael Torelli,
Present.
John Dowdett,
Present.
Leslie Pieri,
Present.
Vincent Odock,
Present.
and Paul Riskevich.
Present.
All members are in attendance.
Great. Next item on the agenda is an update on the DA subpoena and the Orange County legislative request. Like we talked about, we'll lead this off. Sorry. We'll lead this off every meeting with that update. Last to my knowledge, as we reported yesterday at the Orange County Legislature E&E Committee, that we were in full compliance with all the requests. Bill, any updates, or legal counsel, any updates in regards to the requests themselves, in regards to supplying all the information that is needed?
So it's Karen. Hi, everybody. So at this point, we are up to date with both the Orange County District Attorney requests by way of grand jury subpoena and letter requests. We are also up to date with respect to the legislative requests. We continue to receive letter requests at this point by the Orange County District Attorney's Office, and they are very limited, very limited requests that we are at this point able to turn around within a half hour or so. So I think at this point we're seeing the end of the document requests.
Great. And thank you so much for everything that you've done. I know that you'll be leaving us soon and going on to some bigger things. And please keep us in mind. We want to thank you for everything that you've done, specifically in regard to these requests and helping out staff and board members understand the entire process. It's invaluable for what you have provided. There's not something we could put on top of that. So please, thank you so much. Thank you, Karen.
I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate Langdon putting his trust in me and putting me on this project. I've really enjoyed meeting all of you and helping in any way I can with this transition. I know it wasn't easy, but I think everyone's doing an amazing job keeping everything afloat, moving forward, and making every bit of this this entity better. So it's been a joy for me to watch.
And good luck in your new endeavor.
Thank you very much.
Any other updates? Any other board members have any questions or concerns about subpoena legislative requests, or any Bill, anything else? I can't think of anything.
No, sir. I think we're totally up to date, and we've communicated with the legislature as well and given them a few other answers that come up in E&E meetings that you and I presented to and such, and we appear to be up to date with everything right now.
Great. That's great. Next on the agenda, approval of the minutes of our last board meeting of April 20th, 2021. Any comments or any discussion? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Thanks, John. I'll second them. Bill, can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mike Torelli,
Yes.
John Dowdett,
Yes.
Leslie Pieri,
Yes.
Vincent Odock,
Yes.
and Paul Riskevich.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
5 ayes. Motion passes.
Moving right along. Next topic we're going to jump into is finance. As we talked about in the past, we started to put together this finance package, and we will be looking at some things today. For a quick revision back, let's talk about exactly what we were thinking about doing. And while this is not final, this is something that's a work in progress. As you know, what we are trying to put in place is a system that has not only a check and balance, but also has the proper documentation for backup. so that if we have to, or if anyone else ever has to go back and look at expenditures in regards to finance, that information will be there. One of the first orders of business that we did, and I believe it's been completed, is that for all expenditures, it will take 2 signatures. Right now, that is out of the 3 people who have signatory authority, which is myself and Leslie and Ed. So that has been put in place since our last meeting, and I believe is in full effect. Another thing that we've talked about is moving forward with is this purchase order / payment voucher procedure. And basically what we've asked staff to do, and I've worked with them a little bit offline on this, and it's, like I said, a work in progress, is that for each expenditure, there's going to be a detailed check and balance list on exactly what that expenditure is, not only who the payee is and the dates and the amounts, a description, how it was procured, whether it was approved by a board previously or moving forward. And we're putting this in place in lieu of having an executive director / person at the lead of the organization be able to do this in lieu of that. At this point, all purchase orders, all payment requests are coming in front of the board to be paid. And while this may be a work in progress and may change in the future, depending upon limits and depending upon, say, some reoccurring balances and or reoccurring payments, this is the procedure that we're putting in place now. And today will be the first time we'll be looking at some of this when we get down to the 3rd sub-bullet of approval to pay some of the April and May payables. So along with this, we're also putting in there on this purchase order voucher cover sheet and backup, we're putting in staff who have reviewed it for accuracy. And then at board meetings, we will be asking Bill, with the assistance of staff, to be presenting them to us in a batch scenario. And what I mean by a batch scenario is that we'll be doing things in the order in regards to their complexity, I would believe. Some of the reoccurring ones, some of the ones that are like utilities and different things like that will be in the beginning. And then some of the more variable ones will be later on in presentation. We'll be doing them in groups so that we don't get stuck in the minutia of trying to look at everything at once. Eventually, like I said, this will get easier, but in the beginning, it's going to have some questions. So when we get to that point, I'll ask Bill to do that. So with that, Bill, anything you would like to add in regards to the purchase order or payment voucher system that we're beginning to put in place?
No, just really, first of all, thank you for your help. I know we've had many conversations about this, and I appreciate your patience in working with all of this, Ed, Kelly, and myself. We want to get it right. Obviously, we understand that the intention here is really to have control and oversight, which clearly has been necessary. So we're going to keep tweaking it till we have it exactly the way that the board feels that it's most appropriate. We did revamp the voucher, or the cover sheet, I should say, for this evening. We got it to the board earlier today. We didn't have time after we last met to really get it in the order you wanted to get it out with the board packets last week. So we did send a revision that does show the batching that you talked about. There's what you received today shows three groupings of invoices. The first is recurring building services. That's really the first batch that we'll go over monthly is really about these bills that we get every month. Utility bills, internet, things like that, that are kind of low-hanging fruit in that regard, and we'll want to be able to approve those together. So that's the first group you see with the heading at the top says recurring building services. The second batch, what we'll typically do each month, it says here monthly contracts, and it's just that. We're in contract, obviously, for various services, and those bills are going to continue to come. They're not quite the low-hanging fruit that smaller utility bills may be. They're more substantial, but they're still contracts that we've researched. We know that the board approved them. All that documentation is all backed up, and we're asking the board to review those as well. The third batch that you'll get each month, it tends to be ones that require more attention, perhaps more discussion by the board, and then we will most likely go item by item. Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, would you agree with everything the way I laid it out?
Yeah, it makes sense. And what we would ask in each one of those batches, Bill, is for you to give your variance report in regards to that. Like, what are some of the stuff, if we have like, say, 20 transactions we're looking at, if you could identify the ones that maybe you're working on, in particular, if there's something that, maybe that would catch your eye, whether if it's something that's a variance that's a little bit higher than normal or seasonal in nature, just so you can describe it and see how you and staff are working on it to remedy and or rectify moving forward. And I think there's a couple of them that we talked about that are pretty easy to discuss. So what I'd like to be able to do is I'd like to be able to switch the April financial reports to the approval to pay the April, May payables, because since we're already on this, we'll come back to the financial reports after this. So if someone could pull that up on the screen so that we can see that. Is that a possibility?
Sure. You want to pull up the vouchers that we sent earlier today?
Yeah, the batches, so that you could describe them and then we can look at them, ask whatever, you can give your variance, your quick overview of them. We'll look at them. And then if we have any questions in particular, because we'd like to be able to try to pay some of them today.
Okay. I'm pulling those up right now. Okay, share my screen.
Take your time, no rush.
Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'm going to ask Ed Januszewicz to chime in as well, our CFO, because we have been discussing, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, a number of items over the last several weeks that just seem to stick out, either utility bills that seem high, others that we think we're able to find a way negotiation or otherwise to lower. So there have been a couple. There's a power bill that we looked into at Highland Falls. Ed did research that. Ed also looked to lower the internet bill that we have here at Fort Crotty Lane. So that's something else he worked on. You're seeing in here. And we also are looking to reduce the cleaning bill that we have, the cleaning service at the Middletown Accelerator Pod. Because of COVID, we had stepped up to cleaning 5 days a week, and that just doesn't seem necessary, especially because the facility is far from full. So that's something we're looking to trim back down to 1 day per week. But we're also, as the chairman has encouraged us since day one, we're also going to seek other quotes so that we'll always have 3 quotes that we can look at just to make sure that we're whatever service we are utilizing is most cost effective. Ed, do you want to talk about any of that detail? For example, starting with Orange and Rockland and Highland Falls, just very basically.
Okay, I guess first of all, we're looking at, as you mentioned, this is all, the first set is all the building and maintenance of utilities, cleaning, the IT stuff, again, recurring. It covers a lot of territory because a couple things are, we started this process back in April, so there's a lot of bills that have yet to be paid from April. And because we're not meeting again until late June, items that are usually due the first part of June, namely the rent for June, are included in here. The items that he brought up, he mentioned about Orange and Rockland. Highland Falls has a significant bill of $1,300 for the month. Did a little research. Found out that building is on a time of use contract, and the bill includes a substantial portion for demand, and it spiked up in April for some reason. Not quite don't have a reason why yet, but that probably contributed a few $100s to that particular bill for the month of April. I believe otherwise did some more research regarding average utility uses for an office building, and a vacant one would probably use close to the 5 kilowatts per square foot that we're currently using. So, it's going to look into seeing about what the the contract we have, or the billing system we have, whether we're better off going to a fixed rather than time of use rate.
Yeah, so what we would ask there is to do some analysis, present it to the next board. Obviously, we want to be able to reduce that if at all possible. Obviously, to reduce the demand and the usage on a building that we're not currently occupying and stuff like that. So, if you have to reach out to Orange and Rockland and or go down there and turn some lights off and or make sure that stuff's programmed correctly, please do. I think a couple other ones that I had, if you could just zoom in a little bit. I know it's not the easiest to read. While we have some very, very basic stuff, as these things come due, we're going to rely upon staff to potentially go out and get some quotes so that we make sure we're competitive. Like whether if it's, there's only so much you can do with utilities, there's only usually one utility provider, but you'll also see in here that we have trash and we have oil deliveries and those type of things. So we've asked staff to move forward to do that analysis, and then on a periodic basis, double check those rates and make sure that we're utilizing and getting the best bang for our buck in regards to some of these things. Some of them are going to be fixed in nature. The idea here is that some of the ones that are really fixed in nature, like I'll say lease payments or something like that in regards to like say the copier or something like that, in future board meetings, we may ask to batch them in a sub batch in this category so that they could be approved, say, for the remainder of the year. And you would put it on there with a check mark next to it that it's already been approved. And we'll do that on a reoccurring basis. So we'll ask staff for those ones that are really reoccurring and static to potentially put them together so that we can do them as a batch itself or a batch within this batch. Any questions in regard, or Bill, any more updates, or I'll open up to board members to ask any questions they may have?
Ed, also, we had fiber optic internet service into 4 Crowdy Lane here. It was far more than we needed. Ed switched that to a regular coaxial service, so that's something else. We're going to get a one-time charge. I think it's $325, something like that.
You'll see that in our, we had to get hire IT technician to change the system over. And we got, actually this month we have a double bill just because the fiber was still active for a time while the other one was being installed.
Sure, and that will come down in the future probably, right?
Right, I believe I've seen the next bill we're gonna get is actually a credit, so I should expect a check from them.
Okay.
I have a question.
Certainly.
Vincent, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, some of the bills I see here, high bills, are a function of usage. Is there any way employees or those using these facilities, anything they can do to reduce usage? Maybe turning lights off, like electric bill, like that's an electric bill. Is there any way employees, anything they can do to reduce the cost?
Most of the central Hudson you see is those are the accelerators, and those are most of that's being driven by equipment, I believe. So that's on the usage of the equipment. We can work with the tenants, I guess, to determine if they can do stuff with that.
Yeah, I would think a good spot check would be to make sure that, any best practices that are out there with making sure that, equipment is turned off at night, lights, the stuff that everyone would do at their normal home or their normal place of business. Let's make sure that our subtenants at these accelerators are doing the same. So a spot check with that periodically would be warranted on each facility.
Yes, these are conversations I've had with every tenant that I've met with. I've met with all of them except one that's out of the country. He's in Japan right now. And we've asked this, that help us keep costs down. It's a team effort here. Shut lights off, turn off some of your equipment as needed. And as Ed said, really the bulk of the usage tends to be from our manufacturers, candles, other scented products. A lot of them use heaters and high power equipment like that. That seems to be where most of it is coming from. So again, we have asked them to limit them to be as efficient as possible, but some of it is hard to avoid given the nature of their businesses.
Understood. Any other questions from board members on, is this, can you scroll down? Is this the entire first batch or is it going to a second page?
The second page to it.
There is a second page. Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe too far. It should have been a second page.
No, I think on the first version, there was a second page.
Yeah, there is a second page for this. Guys, take more. These are more.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's we call now the fiber service, phone systems.
Correct.
We leased the phone system here at Fort Crotty.
Sure.
This is all the first batch though.
Yep.
That you're seeing.
This is where the cleaning was that you talked about for Middletown, which while this is stuff that we've already used, you're looking at and have already put in place a mechanism to reduce that due to the lack of need for that.
Yes, sir. The quote they gave us for 1 day a week was just over $1,000. So again, we're going to seek 2 other quotes from other other companies to see how that matches up. But already we're going to see a big decrease there.
Great. Any questions or any other questions from board members? We're looking to potentially talk about the grand total on that first batch. Roughly, what is that 45,679?
679.06.
I don't have any questions on any line items in this batch.
And I know this is pretty much everyone's first time through this, so no rush. We can ask as many questions you may have, please.
So if there's no further questions, I'd like to entertain a motion to pay this first batch $45,679.06.
I'll make a motion.
Is there anyone willing to second?
I'll second, Mike.
Okay, Bill, can you call the roll on this first batch?
Yes, sir. Michael Torelli,
Yes.
John Dowdett,
Yes.
Leslie Pieri,
Yes.
Vincent Odock,
Yes.
Paul Riskevich.
Yes.
5
Great.
yeas.
Congratulations, everyone. We just paid our first amount of bills.
Thank you.
That's an achievement for a new board that hasn't been in front of this. And I'm glad that what staff has put together on that first batch. And like I said, it'll get easier and hopefully less questions and stuff. So Bill, go ahead and talk about the second batch and any of the variances and/or discussions on any of the topics here.
Second batch is, as you see at the top, monthly contracts. Again, what we'll typically go into the second batch are contracts that we have. So these bills are expected to be coming in. You see from our finance here, Dean is 88 Studio, handles IT and things like the meeting that we're on right now. Focus Media does our website. Loki Brill is our local labor consultant. We talked about Brown and Weinrob, and of course Kevin is on there. I don't believe there's anything unusual to talk about, any variances to speak of. Ed, anything you want to comment for this list?
No, it's we call now pretty straightforward. I mean, it's overall you're going to find that legal's a little bit on the from first quarter is going to be a little bit higher than usual, but that was expected from the activity going on. So.
And then to make a quick point on that would be, Bill, obviously you and staff have reviewed the specific details of some of the variable bills and matched that up and I'll say proof that to
Right.
prove that, that type of work was done and those type of things. Not that it's questionable or anything, but every time we have that, we would ask you to obviously review those bills with staff to make sure that they're accurate, both in calculation and in description.
Yes, sir.
Did we get a detailed services billing from the attorneys that are proposed to be paid?
Yes, on this list here, Kevin's the only is on hourly, and I have detail for that. And that's the only legal on this page. The other one has the next set, which is more exceptional. There's a couple on there yet to go.
Yep. So we'll do that when we get to the third batch, but and this batch, the only one that had variableness to it was Kevin's invoices for March and April. And those are directly line item, amount of hours worked and what he worked upon, correct?
Right.
Right.
Yep. Everything else is basically hourly.
Pretty much retainers in Loki Brill, they basically, there's the site reporting's, wake up is, or their report is a retainer basically. And the site visits is basically, for like either 3 or 4 visits. And so depending on that and times the rate that they charge,
Sure.
that's it. But everyone else is pretty much retainers.
And just to be clear, Ed, please correct me if I'm wrong, with Loki Brill, the projects and obviously the companies behind those projects pay for Loki Brill's local
Not
labor
all
audit
of them.
services.
Not all.
Not
of them.
all?
No, only, I think right now, probably only 2 of the 4 that are active. So.
Was that a policy change that went going forward? Because my understanding going
They
forward
made
is
the change sometime for, that some, when they created the agreements, some we have set up escrow account, which we draw from to pay for the fees. Other ones, it is right from the IDA funds.
Yeah, can I say something about that?
Certainly.
Basically, there's only a few that are out there that predated the board's decision to put, Loki Brill and ask each applicant for a escrow amount. I think it's Amy's Kitchen and like one other one. So we continue to pay that for Loki Brill to do our inspections because it predated the actual institution of the escrow accounts. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me, Kevin. Thank you for the detail.
Okay.
Board members, any other questions on this second batch in relation to the $54,150.40? Without any questions?
Was any of the billing for the attorneys and for Loki Brill submitted to Langdon or I for review? I don't remember getting it to look at it for any purpose. Anyone send that to us?
This is Langdon. Yeah, this is Langdon. I'm not aware of any submittal for those. I know I've had a couple conversations with Loki Brill, and a couple conversations with Kevin over the course of the month, but I'm not aware of any submission or review on any of those. So I'm happy to review them. It's up to the board if you want to pay it pending my review. If you want me to review it, if you want to pay it on your own, I don't really care.
Bill, can you go into the Loki Brill consulting stuff for February, March, and I believe the other one is April. These are direct bills with calculations for the site visits and the reporting that they did based upon the hours that they worked, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's per visit.
Per visit, same thing. Staff proofed that? You proofed the hours times the amount worked and everything compared to the contract?
Correct.
Okay. In this instance, since council did not review them, I'd like to have that $14,735 held at this point for them to review, and then pending their approval to be added. So that would be one difference, or I'll say variant that I would like to entertain. Any other things that are
the Brown and Weinraub total, that's the $5,500 for 2 separate months for their retainer. Is that correct, Ed?
Correct. One's for April, one's for May.
Okay. And then Mr. Dowd actually submitted a detailed billing. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think what I'd like to see is the detailed billing from Mr. Dowd and the Loki Brill. If you want to vote to pay it pending that review, that's fine. If you want to hold just those 2 bills, the Loki Brill very briefly and Mr. Dowd very briefly just for review, that's fine too. Langdon, is that your take as well?
That is. I mean, Loki Brill, I know, is heavily involved in an audit matter. I've not been given copies of the details of Kevin's work at all. I mean, it's an attorney billing, so I have to have faith in it. But honestly, if I'm being asked to quote unquote coordinate legal services, I'm perfectly happy, and it's reasonable for me to take a look at attorney billing before it goes as well.
Can I
Okay.
say,
No problem.
Mike, may I say something?
Who's this?
My March bill is really
Kevin.
out of the ordinary because of something like, I think we had 6 special meetings of the IDA board through the month of March. And that's one reason why you see a higher number. I am a solo practitioner and I really rely upon my monthly income to pay my bills and to pay my taxes and the like. And so I understood why you held back to March. I really would really ask you to consider the fact that staff has looked at, I know that the attorneys might not have looked at it, but the staff has looked at it, and my bills are very, very detailed, and maybe I was accused of maybe putting too much detail in my bills over the years, but nevertheless, you know, the work was done, and I would really appreciate some consideration for that.
Sure. Langdon and Karen, would you be able to review these before the end of the week?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to amend what I previously asked for in my variant is to, I'd like to be able to consider all of them minus Loki, Brill, and Kevin until, so that our legal counsel can take a look at them by before close of business Friday.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns by board members or anyone else? So the motion that I would like to entertain from someone is to pay the $54,150.40, withholding $19,002 for Kevin Dowd, and the $14,735 from Loki Brill, pending review by legal counsel.
I'll make that motion, Mike.
Thank you. We have a second out there?
I'll second.
Thank you, Leslie. Bill, can you call the roll on this, please?
Yes, Michael Torelli,
Yes.
John Dowdett,
Yes.
Leslie Fieri,
Yes.
Vincent Odock,
Yes.
and Paul Riskevich.
Yes.
5 yeas.
Great, thank you. That's our second batch. We'll go into our third batch now. Bill, can you present the third batch in your variance description?
Sure, here's the third batch, which you see, it's just very simply called all others. Individual charges. We did in our meeting with the chairman, we talked about some payments, WB Mason, for example, that could be made via the credit card. So some of these we may handle that way. Let's see, when I go through this, you see the fiber to coax change at the top that we talked about for Crotty Lane. The credit card payment includes GoDaddy, which is the hosting for our websites, Google G Suite, which is our email. Excuse me, there's also an invoice on there for Zoom, which is pretty considerable because there are quite a few needs. So we're looking into that actually to see if we can reduce that. That's really one item that needed to be looked at was Zoom.
Yeah, because I would think pretty soon we're going to be coming back with live meetings and not having to do as much web-based meetings very soon, if not as early as next month.
Right, so we think we could downsize that and reduce that cost as well. Legal services, you see Hinckley Allen, that's something that came in. I believe that was the crisis attorney that was brought on board by the last board.
And we've subsequently ceased that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we previously voted on ceasing that service, but in that instance, has our council reviewed those fees or those bills?
That I'm quite certain they received
I
that.
actually saw that one, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Harris Beach is, as you see, pass through for Russ's work. I assume that those two, I believe those are sharing application fees for those two projects, Wallkill Owner and Fiorella Pharmaceuticals, $5,000 again application fee that we split with Harris Beach. So we collect the 5 and half goes back to Harris Beach. Ed, am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay.
And thank you for putting the project names with it so we know which ones. That's a good practice.
And and the next one, we did not do so, but Frances Roth is our stenographer. So that's March 16th. I believe that's the Wallkill owner hearing that she was provided this transcript for.
Great.
Bill, can I go back just for a second to the Hinckley Allen?
Yes.
My understanding is that is the criminal defense attorney that was brought in to advise the prior executive staff with respect to the first grand jury subpoena that was served on the IDA. Is that correct?
Correct. That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
So stenographer, and then the last is JGS for the audit and the associated work there that you see listed.
Okay. In this instance, I'll ask council to opine about the Hinckley Allen. Is there anything that in relation to the work that they did for the previous board as compared to representation and such? Is this something that we could potentially, if we have to, or if legal matters pertain? I don't want to go into details legally, but is this something that could be recoverable in the future?
I mean,
That's
from my perspective, you pay the attorney until you terminate them, and they were terminated. So I think we probably pay them. Later on, do we seek to recover? Let's see what the future brings. Is my respectful suggestion.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Board members, any questions specifically about any one of these or any bunch of these in the third batch? It's $30,215.51. Without any questions or concerns, I'd like to get a motion to pay the third batch, $30,215.51.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Paul. We have
I'll
a second.
second. I'll
Thank you,
second.
Leslie. Bill, can you call the roll?
Petrelli,
Yes.
John Dowdett,
Yes.
Leslie Pieri,
Yes.
Vincent Odock,
Yes.
Paul Verskevich.
Yes.
5 yeas.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for going through this exercise. Like I said, hopefully it'll be getting easier. And we obviously have backup in relation to each one of those. Bill, I'd like to jump back to sub-bullet point number 2. Was it 2? Yes. The financials. So if you and Ed would like to present the financials for the month, and if you could put them up on the screen, that would be great.
Right. Let me do that. Ed, why don't you describe what we've shared, and I'll pull it up.
Getting there.
I'm coming. Let me pull them both up.
Should just be the one going across. I guess the comment I'll make is that this is still being working with Mike. He wanted to merge the business accelerator with the IDA, which was separate previously. So some of these charts are still still need to be updated.
Coming. I apologize.
No problem. Take your time. The backup or the reasoning behind that is because we don't have separate accounts. The only separate accounts that we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys and gals, is that we have accounts for the IDA and we have accounts for the OCFC. We don't have separate accounts. So we're asking that when it's presented to us, what is the money that the IDA has in their accounts and what is the money that the OCFC has in their accounts? Obviously, when we get into detail on each one of those accounts, there's going to be sub-accounts like the revenue and stuff coming in and the expenses and the financials for the accelerator, even down to the level of eventually we'd like to get to each accelerator and showing their cost-benefit analysis, but more importantly, the rest of the stuff. So while I asked them to present it that way, it's so that we can look at it in an easier way. It's either IDA stuff when we're in the IDA meeting or the OCFC when we're in the OCFC meeting.
All right.
You want to pull that back up?
Yep, here I come.
while Bill's doing that, one of the things that's going to be in my chairman's report is obviously each month we're going to be getting financial statements like this. After we get our June financial statement, part of what we're going to look for the board to do is do a half-year look, comparing our current financials compared to the budget that was previously done. And we'll look at a variance report to that. So in case we need to make any decisions and or move forward, so we understand where we're going to be looking at for the remainder of the year. We'll do that probably at a committee level meeting. I'm not sure if we'll do it in audit committee or governance committee or something like that. Probably on the audit side of things, audit/financial, but that's something to look forward to. And as early as sometime in July, that we'll be looking to compare the half-year financials compared to the budget. So please, staff, go ahead and describe the financials that you're presenting.
First document is cash. Ed, I'll let you step them through this.
Okay, again, this is what was shown previously. This is just the IDA's account. It does not include the business accelerator. Was handled again differently. It was basically the accelerator was funded by the IDA, and that was treated separately. Next month, I will add that line in for the bank account, which I believe is around $700,000 right now. But in the IDA alone right now, there's $5.1 million. And you see that currently we have no CD set up, but everything else is in checking or money market.
So obviously at this point, we would look, Bill, for you and staff to make recommendations and working with county support to identify any funding that we could potentially use for operating, but more importantly, what can be invested. Obviously, we want to be able to maximize our investments like that has done in the past. So that's a takeaway from today's meeting, is to move forward with a recommendation to move forward with that.
Yes, we certainly plan to do so. For example, a conversation Ed and I had earlier was about the change in cash flow right now, that without Galileo, without some other contracts that we were able to eliminate, we have more cash on hand that we would be able to invest, and we want to do so. So we are going to use the feedback that we got from the Commissioner of Finance from Orange County and some other feedback as to where the best rates are, and we're going to shop those around for sure. I will warn you in advance that there was an approved list of banks that we could do such business with that was approved by the board. There are some banks, local banks, that were identified by the Finance Commissioner for Orange County that had very attractive rates that were not on that list. So what we're going to do is we're going to seek the rates from all banks in the area, and we're going to bring them to you. And if there are some that we think that are not on the list, some banks that aren't on the list but could be advantageous, we bring that to the board to ask for you to add such banks to the list. That's how we'll approach that, if that's okay.
That sounds great, Bill. Thank you.
All right, next chart, I believe, is this is, we can merge them together later. This is the IDA, not without the business accelerator spending for the month of April, year to date, and against the budget. Since we didn't process any checks in April, there's no expenses there. We only had the interest earnings of the 3632. Is that we had one, trying to think of what I'll forget. We had that CD closed that we had the interest
M&T
added on for the in the month there. Offhand, there's really, most of these things are spread out over the, towards one-time event like the auditors. Insurance is at one time during the year, towards the end, so you won't see that for a while there. And also, I think we have anything else. The agencies are usually, a number of them are at the end of the year, so those will be under plan until then.
Great. One point here that I'd like for everyone to obviously take notice of is our first income line. Obviously, that's of grave concern. While a budget was made prior to us for $777,000 in fees, basically we only had one fee so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was on the Warwick project. So obviously that-
Yeah, it was over there. The 700,000 that we're gonna expect money coming in from Legoland. I believe their payment.
okay.
All right,
So
that's-
obviously, when it comes down to this, Bill and Ed, we'd like for you to be able to identify variances that are significant, like that being one of them. So when you make your report, we'd like for you to be able to say that so we don't have to ask the question every time. In a perfect scenario, maybe even a little side description on the line that talks about the plus or minus and the reason. Doesn't need to be on every one, but it would be on the significant ones. We know that like on the income on the recovered, I imagine that's the Warwick LDC loan that we've given, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, like a little tiny thing off to the side. We'll dive into this more after the June financials when we do our half year analysis compared to the budget, but this will at least compare it. And next month, I would imagine we would see the May line showing some of the bills that we just paid. And then the year-to-date numbers being reflective of that. So obviously, it's something to look at. As we go from page to page, I would ask that you would ask, Bill, if you'd ask if there's any board members have any questions about any of the line items,
Yes.
just so I don't have to.
Okay. Let's see. So, do you want to go item by item here? Income?
That's basically all. Again, this is pretty straightforward. I mean, as far as the IDA, it's you have the auditors, your insurance, professional fees is mostly accounting. You have the agencies and then legal, and then the project expenditures. Some are been identified in the budget. Some are at placeholders. I can get back to you on that.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, we don't have that detail because we didn't pass that previous budget. So I don't know what $500,000 in project expenditures. Obviously, any expenditure is going to come in front of the board now. So whether it was budgeted or not, it's still going to have to obtain.
Yeah, it's got to justify itself. No.
Yep, exactly. I don't have any questions, any further questions on this page.
Anyone else? Any further questions? Okay.
Okay, and this
P&L for the
chart
accelerator?
is,
Hey, I'm sorry, Bill, and I just quick question. Our fiscal year, when is it on? Calendar year, Jan 1?
calendar year, correct.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, and this is for the business accelerator, similar data. We had a little more, we had some checks were processed in April, so there's in salary, so that you see the expenses there, so that's sort of partial. Just going, we have client rent and is the monthly rent we get from the tenants. Salaries and benefits are the basically right now the staff here. Payroll is the matching for it. Management expense was the Galileo fixed contracts. Accelerator walls was the primarily Galileo's contract. Special initiatives, we had some contractors and some capital type expenses in the budget for that. See the building expenses. Again, it's the building insurance bills, the rent for all the facilities, utilities, speaks for itself. Repairs and maintenance, those are basically bringing in contractors to fix, do a repair or to fix something. Operations, I believe, is the cleaning type of items. And then renovations, that was primarily money that was going to get spent in the Highland Falls. So that's basically what we identify as building expenses. A little bit of money to maintain equipment. Information technology is the phones and copiers, such. Marketing, PR website, that includes the people like Dean Brady, Focus Media, the Zoom, GoDaddy is in there. Straight office cleanings down there, and the 310s. Going back to the operations, I think is more the trash pickup. Office supplies and postage, straightforward. We had travel and lodging, which we've, nothing there. Same with education. Professional fees, I'll have to double check what was on the year to date, but that's, I'll have to go back on that one. Then we were going to have budgeted for conferences, which I believe there's none so far today.
So what we would ask here, hey, Bill, what we would ask here, and I think the board would concur, is that we want to make sure that, say, for next month, the May expenses are going to match the May expenses that we approved, that we just approved during that last batch. Okay. So there's like there's a monthly proof that we're going to ask management to do. And if, just to make sure that that these financials are as accurate as possible. When we say budget, that's the year budget, correct? That's the annual budget number.
Annual budget, right? We don't. There's not one broken out by month.
By monthly or budget to date or anything like that, correct? Yeah.
Right.
That's just the year to date. Okay. So Bill, so that's one ask that as a takeaway is that we'll ask that what is presented in the financials match what is presented on the payables that we agreed to.
Yep, understood.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else further?
Just quick question here, Mike, Bill and Ed, just anywhere on this budget is green light, yellow light, red light. Are there any red lights on here? As you guys look at this budget, Ed, you might be the one to kind of project that, having all of us who are new here to this. Is there any red lights on there that we should be aware of?
I would only on a particular item, I would maybe some of this for marketing or whatever may, you see you're already closing up in on it. I think there was activity that was going to get taken in the budget and has not happened. I think that's probably the largest one to be worried about. I think everything, and utilities may be the case too, just because we may be wrong, I think Highland Falls and Warwick were not planned, or maybe on the low side in the budget.
You can't hear yet.
Saying that on the utilities, I think good chance of being the budget underestimated both Highland and Warwick.
Mm-hmm.
And John, you make a great point, because you're absolutely right. There's going to be line items that we're through April, right? So that's January, February, March, April. So that's 4 months out of the year. And in the utility section, we've spent just shy of half of the year's budget on it.
Yeah, and Ed, I going through this, when we do our budgets, having gone through stuff here, it takes 24 months, 36 months to really get to a cycle where you're looking at seasonal expenses or variance. Is there a variant expense in here that, as new eyes on this, that we should be aware of, where in July or August, September, October, later in the year, that you have any experience where there's something we should watch for or be aware of?
I personally have limited experience, just being here since, beginning of last year. And or at that time, basically not even a year ago. And how bills are coming in, some of these I got to watch for, especially if we're dependent on some of these contracts. We're dependent on somebody else. We're reimbursing the landlord. Sometimes they don't get the request into us fast enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll just keep an eye on it. Okay, got it. Thanks.
As we get better, to get a better feel for each of them.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't have any further questions on this. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm good, Mike. Thanks.
Any other questions, anyone?
Do we formally adopt these monthly, Bill? Have we done that in the past? I don't remember. I apologize.
Generally, it's basically at the end of the financial, there's a motion to accept the report and the payments.
Okay.
No,
So
you
obviously
brought-
we've broken out the payments.
Yes.
So now it's just the financials. Any further on the financials?
No, not except for OCFC.
Okay.
All right,
And this has
we'll
been
do that later on.
superseded by, except for the revenue coming in, that will show the next chart, was the, this is basically the IDLO without the business accelerator. This is how way it was with the previous board. So the vouchers and payments you've already talked about. And as far as receipts, we got the closing fee from the Orange Inn, 33,000. And they also got we got 5,000 from Orange Inn to set up the labor audit escrow account.
Okay. Anything further to present?
No, that's it.
Okay. Any questions from the board in regards to the financials that were presented? Like to entertain a motion to accept the financials?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Leslie. Second?
Yeah, I'll second that, Mike. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Bill, can you call the roll on the financials, please?
Yes, Michael Torelli,
Yes.
John Dowdett,
Yes.
Leslie Perry,
Yes.
Vincent Odoc,
Yes.
Paul Riskevich.
Yes.
5 yeas.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda. We'll go into new and unfinished business. My report's going to be brief. Going over some of the stuff that we've talked about in the past, we're still putting together and looking for a date for our retreat / reorganization meeting so that we can come to terms on exactly what we want to do when we want to do it. That's going to be sometime before the summer. The idea with having 5 board members right now is that we're going to supplement our monthly meetings, which are the third Tuesday today of each month, with having at least one committee meeting. And when I say committee meeting, we're going to do it since there's only 5 of us, no sense only 3 of us meeting or 2 of us meeting, all 5 of us. We'll invite everybody. It'll be a quicker type format. It'll be fully transparent, and we'll be going over different things. Certain committees are required by by New York State, which we have to do twice a year. So we'll be ticking them off. But more importantly, we'll go into them and we'll schedule them when it's convenient, probably for an end of day type scenario where everyone's convenient, but they will be shorter in nature. It will just be majorly just a discussion. We'll ask staff to make a presentation about it, about different topics in regards to that committee, and then moving forward with it. We may or may not have consultants on it because there might not be anything that we need to discuss with them, and that'll be to be determined. We're also, I'm proud to announce that we're going to be meeting with our partners in economic development, the Orange County Partnership, the Orange County Chamber of Commerce, in the very near future to come up with a game plan for economic development for the county. It's something that we're working with the county executive on. I don't have anything to report on that specifically yet, but I'm hoping by either the next committee meeting and or the next monthly meeting, we'll have a game plan in place that I'd like to be able to report on to all the board members and our consultants about what we're looking to do as our vision going for the remainder of the year and into next. And it's like I say, our vision, the county's economic vision with all these agencies and their boards and their staff. So it's something that's that's been much needed, and I'm looking forward to helping along with that and spearheading that effort. And like I said, I'll have more to report. I wish I had more. Nothing's happened yet, but we're in the planning stages of trying to meet. And then lastly, I'd like to go ahead and talk about projects. In a perfect scenario, in the future, I'd like to be able, if we have a project that needs to make a presentation, bring them up a little bit higher in the agenda. Being that this is at the end of a business day, we'd like to do that. While we may have one, I'm not sure 100%. I'll ask Bill to opine upon that in a minute. But we'd like to move them up so that they're not having to wait through all of our normal day-to-day or monthly stuff that we have to go through. But I want everyone to be able to feel comfortable, and I'll ask staff to be able to maybe put a quick little cheat sheet together so that board members, when they're talking, whether if it's in the commercial real estate realm out there, if you're talking to anybody, you'd be able to ideally articulate what the IDA has to offer. And then obviously giving staff's contact information so they can follow up and directly talk with staff. I know I feel very comfortable in helping sell the IDA benefits and the economic development assistance, but I'm not sure everyone else does. And with that, I'd like staff to put together like a little, like one pager, like a little cheat sheets that people could feel comfortable with, so that they'll be able to, if they see somebody or if during their course of business, or if they meet somebody, or if someone approaches them, because obviously I think we're being the most transparent that we can ever be. I mean, the stuff we've gone through in the last hour or so is probably the most transparency I've ever seen in relation to an IDA, whether it's ours or anybody else's. So I think people are going to be asking us different questions. So I'd ask staff maybe to put together a cheat sheet so that others feel comfortable. Whether you use it, and we can give it out, something that we can actually give out if we want to. So we'll ask, maybe to have it put together with a real, a low expense to it. Maybe we could print it ourselves or something like that. But something almost like a take one or a giveaway or something that we can just pull out of a folder. Yeah, I'm on the IDA. This is what we have to give. And, we can give maybe some examples. We did the Orange Inn, and we've helped with Legoland, and we've helped with the project in Warwick, and on and on and on, because there's a lot of positivity that is out there and the jobs that we're creating, and the commercial ratables we're creating.
I think that's a great idea. We'll definitely do that. And you and I have the benefit of being business attraction directors in the past. So we quote unquote sold these benefits. So I don't expect everyone to have the same handle we did.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that makes everyone feel a little more comfortable and they can be able to speak to it. Whether you're selling it or whether you're just trying to speak to it to people that because they're questioning you about, hey, you're on the IDA. What does that mean? Those type of things. I want to make sure everyone feels comfortable that way. And like literally, so it's like the back of your hand, just like you would be in your own subject matter experts in the fields that you're in. We want you to be able to be subject matter experts in what the IDA offers, what we do, and all the positive things that come from it. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my report. I don't want this to go too long. I know one of our board members has to jump off at 6:45, so I want to make sure that we move through. So I'll ask Bill to give his management report, and then we'll go into a couple of the other unfinished businesses and anything else we need to go into. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have much more to add that I haven't shared with you already. Every week I'm trying to give you a written update so you have a sense of what's going on. And there's been a lot, even through what seems to be a slow period here where we don't have a pipeline full of, chock full of projects. There's still a lot going on. There's transactions that are being requested of us, other things that are in front of us. So we're staying busy with that. Obviously, subpoenas and legal requests. A legislative request, Mr. Tully covered that. We're up to date with that to the best of our ability, what we know. As far as the accelerators, I have shared this with many of you, but I've met with virtually every tenant of ours except one that's on kind of holiday in Japan right now. But he and I have spoken live. I really feel that we have stabilized everything at our accelerator locations. There was obviously some uncertainty given the news, et cetera, and the change in leadership, but I think we've really given people calm and some confidence that they've got us as a resource and answer any questions they have, any concerns, and try and troubleshoot any problems. We've provided technical assistance. We've resolved some conflicts between tenants. We've also tried to provide some of the services that I think a lot of these tenants came here for, which was help reviewing their business plans, their financials, helping making connections, business development, whatever it might be. There was one of our clients in the Middletown Accelerator. It's a tech-based company, and they're at the point where they're looking to fund, to build equity, and they're looking to do some pitches, so to speak. So we set them up with a couple local investors, and they did a pitch session right here in the IDA headquarters. That was pretty interesting, I think, for all of us involved. But that's just some examples of what we've been doing. I think you know that I've been to West Point, met with the folks from Campfire and many faculty members from West Point talking about the concept of the Island Falls Artificial Intelligence Accelerator. certainly there's a lot of interest from West Point, a lot that we could build on, but obviously around the location, there are plenty of other questions and concerns. We talked about finance, revamping the payment voucher system. As you see, we're continuing to try and tweak that. We're going to make sure we have that right. Hopefully for June, we have it 100%, and we're looking for other opportunities to reduce costs, including some of the variances that we talked about. Compliance, I just want to thank everyone for continuing to work with me and Kelly to get all the documents we need from you. We still have a few other pieces that are out there, and Karen Reyes has been kind of pointing out a couple little discrepancies, things that we could make even better. So I'll be reaching out over the next week or so to make sure that we have everything from you. And then what I also provided to you were summaries of recent projects, some that have come back into the picture for whatever specific reasons they may have. I did try and provide all this information to you in a way that was easy to follow. One document, one email, but it looked like that email was too big and didn't go through. So I apologize. I had to send some of these in the individual emails, but did try and keep it as simple and easy to follow as possible. So you have those updates on different projects. There's just one, there are actually two that are on the agenda today for us to talk about. One is Wallkill Owner, which is the Wallkill Living Center. And the others is St. Luke's Cornwall Hospital. The St. Luke's one, we do have an attorney representing St. Luke's with us this evening, Richard Dennett, and he is available to speak to us about what St. Luke's reached out to us about regarding a forbearance agreement that they're going to be entering into with their commercial lenders that does impact their the bonds, the revenue bonds, the tax-free revenue bonds that they have through the Orange County IDA. So that's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman, and when the time is right, we can bring Mr. Dennett on and discuss that issue.
Sure. So there's someone also from Wallkill Owners LLC on, or no?
There's not. We didn't think
All right,
that
so
was
let's,
necessary, but because he was on.
I would say let's flip them since we have someone, and if he's ready to give a quick presentation. What we're asking for them to do is just to put in their, tell us what their request is, and obviously I think we're going to need some more additional information, some backup, some of the meat and potatoes per se of what they're looking to do. And then if we need to meet specially or at our next meeting, we would take a look at that and analyze that. But if he's ready to speak, we'd love to have him up for 5-10 minutes just to give a quick overview of what St. Luke's Cornwall Hospital is looking from the IDA, and look forward to it.
Mr. Dennett, are you on with us?
I am on. Hopefully
Terrific.
You can see me.
There he is. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Rick, I'm just going to throw it to you to give us an overview. The board has a little prep beforehand, but please summarize the scenario for us, and we'll try and accommodate the best we can.
Okay, so I'm going to give it from a little bit of a historical perspective, and if you need me to accelerate, you just let me know. There were Orange County IDA bonds that were issued in 2001. There were two series of bonds. One was for St. Luke's and one was for Cornwall Hospital. And then the hospital later merged to form St. Luke's Cornwall. The outstanding amount of the first set of bonds is about 7.4 million. And the second set is about 2.6 million. In 2006, there was another issue through the Orange County IDA, and that has a current balance of about 10 million. All of this was done for capital improvements, maybe a little refinancing, but capital improvements at the hospital. Hospital has other debt as well. It has one bond issue through the City of Newburgh IDA, and it also has some commercial loans through HSBC Bank. In 2014, I'd say 2014 through 2017, the hospital hit a bit of a rough patch and was unable to satisfy some of the financial covenants that it had under its loan agreements. So the financial covenants that I'm talking about are a debt service coverage test, which is basically looking at the amount of income that you have compared to the amount that you have to pay out on your debt. And also a liquidity test, which is looking at what is sometimes referred to as a days cash on hand test. So in the loan documents, there were certain levels that were established, and the hospital did not meet those covenants. That prompted a default under the agreements. However, the hospital did not default on any payment obligations. In 2017, the hospital entered into a forbearance agreement. This is the first forbearance agreement. And what we're here to talk to you about is actually the second forbearance agreement. But this is the first forbearance agreement that was in 2017. And the gist of the forbearance agreement is that the lenders were not going to waive or eliminate any of the defaults that had taken place. They wanted to hold on to those defaults and have the ability to exercise their remedies. But they said that so long as you continue to be a good citizen and not default anymore on your obligations, we will not exercise any of those remedies that we have. So that provided a little bit of protection to the hospital. And the concept was that by the end of the forbearance period, which was ended up being in May of 2020, that the hospital would end up refinancing that debt. New lender or new lenders and all the existing lenders would be out. We tried to refinance that debt, but unfortunately, in part because of the stress of COVID, we were not able to do that in May. So we're in this sort of limbo period from May until December as we're negotiating with the existing lenders, trying to come up with, in essence, another forbearance agreement. And in December, we were able to reach an agreement with the lenders for an additional forbearance. So again, during that period of time, St. Luke's is still paying its debts, paying the lenders, but it's just that the lenders were, we were asking the lenders not to exercise their remedies. So the terms of the forbearance agreement that is being proposed and that St. Luke's wants to enter into, it has a number of components. First, it has a first phase that is good until the end of 2022, and there's an option to extend it to the end of 2023. And those dates and these provisions were done with a careful consideration of what the hospital's projections were. The forbearance agreement also adjusts the covenants so that it's, again, something that was consistent with the projections that the hospital had for what its financial performance would be. There was a little bit of tweaking of financial reporting requirements. There was a 2% increase in interest, which the lenders wanted, in essence, justifying it, saying that there's a change in the hospital's credit. And so because of that, they wanted to have a greater return on the monies that they lent. Some of the loans were done on a variable rate basis. And because, and the benchmark for determining the rate that the hospital would pay was the London Interbank Overnight Rate, or LIBOR. And as some of you may know, the LIBOR rate is essentially being phased out. And so one of the things that the lender said was, we really need to have the documents modified in order to be able to address what happens when LIBOR goes away. And this does not affect your 2001 bonds, but it does affect the 2006 bonds that were issued through the Orange County IDA. As far as other things in the proposed forbearance agreement, they're also asking that we establish an additional debt service reserve fund in the amount of essentially equal to 1 year's debt service, which is about $5 million for the hospital. There's a forbearance fee of about $150,000 that would go to the lenders. Hospital has to cover the legal costs. There is a prepayment that the hospital has to make on the outstanding debt, which is in the amount of about $7 million. And that means that of the Orange County IDA bonds that are outstanding, and I'm using a March 15 principal balance, it was about, in March 15, it was about $20 million. It would drop to about $16.2 million once the $7 million is applied. Noting that if we extend for another year, then we have to pay another $4 million as a prepayment. And that would also be pro rata by the outstanding issues. One other thing is that while the hospital has not failed to pay on the Orange County IDA debt or its Newburgh IDA debt, the debt that it has with HSBC, those are the commercial loans, they actually matured back in May of 2020 or April of 2020. And so provisions had to be made for amortization of that loan. And HSBC agreed then to extend out their loan and to provide for amortization of their loan over this extended forbearance period. So with that as a complicated but brief summary of the forbearance agreement, because of the fact that certain aspects of the forbearance agreement, it's expected that we need to modify some of the outstanding bond documents. And that's really the gist of the request, is whether we would be permitted to modify the bond documents to conform to the forbearance agreement. We are not asking for any waiver of any obligation to pay on the IDA debt. We're still paying and will continue to pay. Knock on wood, we'll continue to pay. And but there are conforming changes that are needed in order to make sure that all the documentation properly reflects the deal. And I'm going to pause for a second. I know that was a lot, but I'm going to pause for a second just to see if anyone has any questions.
Mr. Denon, let me just clarify, because this is really the most salient point I think here is that if the IDA agrees to these terms, they won't result in any delay of future bond repayments, right? Actually, a prepayment is what's included there. Just to be clear about that, how will it impact any payments or revenue coming into the IDA?
So the forbearance agreement actually accelerates, if you will, the repayment of the bonds because of these two prepayment provisions, the $7 million that would be happening in 2021 and the $4 million that, there's a piece of the 7 million and a piece of the 4 million that would go towards the IDA's debt. As far as all the other payments, that's all proceeding in accordance with the existing documents. There are no changes that are going to prevent the IDA debt from being repaid.
Very good. Thank you.
I should, there's one thing I want to add, which is I mentioned the 2% interest, which is a provision that, of course, the hospital objected to strenuously. And we tried to get the lenders to back off of that 2% because of the stress that it would place on the hospital. What they agreed to do was to say that, well, if you end up paying off this debt on time and you abide by the forbearance agreement, then we will waive the payment of that interest. So for the time being, it accrues, but if we follow the provisions and are able to pay everything off by the end of the forbearance period, then that interest would be waived. So that's I mean, that's a summary of it. The process that we're going through involves, unfortunately, there's a tax analysis that has to be done to make sure that that the bonds continue to be tax exempt. Russ's tax partner has been, slaving over lots of diligence documents to make sure that there is no adverse impact on the tax exempt status of the bonds. And hopefully he'll be able to confirm that shortly. And then as soon as we get our approvals, then we'd be able to move forward.
This is Mike Torelli. A quick question or two. It could be for you, could be for council, could be for staff. This is more of it's a different type of transaction. I mean, obviously we haven't had too many as part of this board yet, but in regards to this, this is more of a transactional transaction. And I hate using those terms back to back because it's hard to say, but it's something more of, we want to make sure that on any of these transactional transactions, whether if it's an assignment or a forbearance or any of these things that are not like the normal course of business, that we have a checklist that that staff does for us so that we can feel comfortable that everything is good. And what I mean by that is we want to make sure that anything that is due or owed and or required from any of our reporting requirements and such, that the applicant is in full compliance. So we would ask for staff to opine about that and or counsel. We'd also ask if there is any transactional cost to the IDA for this, and then figuring out how that would be paid for. So those are two items that I think on these different types of transactions. We already have our fee schedule for our normal stuff, but for these type of things that are assignments or forbearances or for stuff that is needed, I'll ask Bill to opine, maybe council to opine, and then if we can get a quick write-up on that, because while this is a little bit new to us, this one is just really recent in the last couple days. It's something that we want to be able to feel comfortable with. So, Bill, if you have any information that we...
Yeah, I was actually just going to defer to Russ Genzel actually and ask him about on our side of it, what needs to be done, and really answer to your questions. Russ, can you add some color to this?
Yeah, sure. And remember, when the IDA or the funding corp issues bonds on behalf of a not-for-profit borrower, the tax rules, the federal tax rules require that we have what's called a conduit issuer to issue the bonds on a tax-exempt basis for qualifying borrowers. Of course, St. Luke's is one of those borrowers. To cut to the chase, Mike, essentially any and all costs that are incurred on behalf of the IDA are required to be paid for by St. Luke's. That's always been the case. Any conduit borrower enters into these transactions knowing that, so there will be no cost whatsoever to the IDA. And again, the IDA is a conduit issuer for federal tax purposes. And at the end of the day, it is a complex change, what Rick alluded to, but it no way, shape, or form impacts the IDA and its role in the transaction. As Rick noted, I have my tax partner reviewing the tax diligence to make sure that the bonds remain tax exempt. So again, the short of it is there's no cost whatsoever to the IDA. And in fact, the only reason the IDA is involved is because they acted as a conduit issuer and are party to certain of the documents, which will be amended, and we'll have to approve those amendments.
Great. The second part of that was compliance with any of our requirements, whether if it's documentation, audit-wise, reporting requirements, payment requirements. Is there anything on the local level that we have to make sure that they're in compliance with, so that there's nothing that is outstanding to, like, say, our partners, whether if it's the taxing jurisdictions, any pilot type of stuff, any type of fees or anything like that?
No, to answer your question, simply no. St. Luke's is exempt as a matter of right, so there's no pilot.
That's what I thought.
And as far as Paris reporting, which is the most burdensome reporting that the IDA has to go through, this would not impact that in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. And we would ask, and Bill, I'll ask that to maybe you put together like a checklist, maybe working with Russ and others, that we have a checklist for these type of transactions, so that we could say, yes, we have everything, and we understand that with a quick little description. Because obviously,
Mike and the board, if I may just quickly, our firm acts as bond counsel to IDAs and LDCs across the state. These types of restructurings as a result of COVID are certainly not atypical. We've done literally dozens of them over the course of the last 18 months. And Rick and I have been working on this one since May, over a year now. And we thought we had a bank, or they thought they had a bank through TD to refinance the debt and take out the existing borrowers. And it just didn't work out from an underwriting standpoint. So we're in atypical times, but what's going on with St. Luke's is not atypical to these types of debt obligations.
That was going to be my next question: is how typical is this, and specifically in this industry? And obviously, we know that the times that we're in. So I thank you for adding that color to it, because that was a definite question that we had, and kind of obvious. in these times and ages, but not obvious maybe to everybody. So
Sure, sure. And we're
Uh,
happy to put together through Rick, Bill, and I, and Langdon and Karen, a checklist of the documents and what needs to be amended and what the approvals are. I know that in speaking with Rick, that both the borrower and the bondholders are anxious to get this wrapped up. So we can do that in short order.
Okay. Board members, any questions that you may have in relation to the presentation or discussion with council and or staff on this? Okay, without any questions, Russ, if you could put that together, would it be, I think we would definitely be able to move forward with this either in a special meeting or next meeting. But I want everybody to ingest this and understand it. I'm not sure if everyone has all the questions, but I think 99% of them have been answered. Is there, can you go over what the timeline is and when you can get that to us so we know what we're opining upon? And then maybe even if there's a resolution that needs to be drafted, that could be done as well?
Oh, absolutely. So I know that Rick had prepared a written correspondence on behalf of St. Luke's, which we can share with the board, which kind of lays out what he talked about at the 10,000 foot level. And then, of course, we would prepare a resolution memorializing, what needs to be done for consideration by the board.
Okay.
I believe the board has those in an individual email I sent that's SLCH, St. Luke's Cornwall. Those documents are attached. If you don't have them or any questions around that, ask me, please.
Yeah, and just to clarify, there is not a resolution that Harris Beach has drafted as of yet, which we will do, Mike, based upon today's discussions.
Yeah. Council, Langdon, Karen, anything that you need from this transaction or would want to review prior to us, putting this on a schedule and or reviewing it for, as quick as we can?
Not on my end. I think Russ has highlighted everything that's necessary and
Okay.
on this matter, and really it's his call as bond counsel more than mine.
All right, so then what I'd like to be able to do is get that information, get the resolution, and then place it first and foremost on our business agenda for next month, if that's not too late. If it's something that we need to do quicker, we could potentially entertain that, but I know schedules are tough.
Yeah, I defer to Rick on that. This is, again, we're just a conduit participant. We being the IDA, it's just a conduit participant. So I defer to Rick as to whether or not they would request a special meeting. And if that is in fact the case, I would imagine once we compile and get the board all the information and Karen and Langdon the information, it would be a very brief meeting if that's what's needed by the borrower.
Yeah. So we, I guess the critical path for us is the tax analysis. And that's the business terms are pretty much set. It's just a question of whether there's tweaking that's needed because of the tax analysis. So once that tax analysis is completed, then at that point, I think everyone's going to want to move quickly. So if you don't mind, I very much appreciate the opportunity to introduce the topic here at this meeting. And if it can be done at your next scheduled meeting, then that's great. But if we do need to move it faster, then we'll just reach out and we'll ask. And if you can accommodate that, then that's great. The hospital would very much appreciate that.
Yeah, they're a great partner to this community, and we all love them. So let's try to get that stuff in as quick as possible. At a minimum, a week before our next scheduled board meeting, which is the third Tuesday in June. I don't have the date in front of me, but
June 15th.
Yeah, thank you. So if we can get that as quick as possible, or at least at a minimum a week before, so that we have a chance to review it, and Russ, if you have a chance to write that resolution, then I think we'll be, more educated on what we're doing, and I don't think there'll be that many more questions, or if there is any, but I think it would be something that we'd be able to definitely move forward with, hopefully, if we get all that information. So,
Yeah, Mike, this is Russ real quick again. We can get you the form or draft of resolution by the end of this week, early next week. As Bill alluded to, Rick did a great job putting together a letter summarizing what he talked about.
yeah.
So I think with that letter and the resolution that we will prepare, you should have the information that you need.
And we have this on video, obviously, if we need to go back and look at it. I think Rick, I think your presentation was great. I mean, it was a lot easier to understand you presenting it that way than trying to read it in a letter in the last day or two. So it's
Right,
definitely something. And I thank you for coming publicly and doing this, because that's key. I mean, I think it makes us understand. It made me understand what is the ask in relation to this request. So thank you. Thank you for doing that.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you all for your time.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. As you know, I'll reach out at any point if we need anything, as I've been able to do. Thanks for being so responsive.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. All right.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bill, next agenda item would be Wallkill owners.
Yes, next is Wallkill owner. Another item that I did share individually, gave you the background and the pertinent documents that are attached. Just a kind of long story short is this company, Wallkill Owner LLC, they're led by Lincoln Avenue Capital. It's a California-based company that works in this sector. They're looking to purchase the Wallkill Living Center on Shutt Road in the town of Wallkill, 136 units, 160,000 square feet. The purchase price is just over $15 million. And then they're looking to make renovations to this affordable housing unit of over $5 million. So we have an application from them dated in February, where they were looking for sales tax exemption, mortgage recording tax exemption, and a new pilot to essentially stabilize the tax payments for the property going forward. And they are looking for tax-free revenue bonds as well. The request is in the amount of $14,673,000. And we did, before this request came in, we got a letter from Empire State Development from the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council that tells us what our private activity bond allocation is. And that is just over, actually just under $12 million, that amount was. Again, they requested over 14. Our volume cap, bond cap, is just under $12 million. So we're looking, the old board wrote a letter to the regional council requesting an increase to that limit. That was attached to what I sent you. I can bring that up if you want to see it again now. And basically, the regional council received that, and knowing that we are going through a leadership transition, called me and said, we'd love to have the new board basically reissue this letter, just so we know that the new board has the same request. So we have a new letter we provided to you as well that Harris Beach drafted. It's basically the exact same letter, but saying we're looking for an increase to our bond volume cap from $12 million or so above what we need to satisfy Wallkill owner, which again is their request is $14,673,000.
So we're asking it to go to that level or a little bit above that?
Let me pull up exactly. And Russ,
Bill, if I may, so
please.
Sure, Mike, sorry. So in February of 2021, with the board's prior action, we submitted a typical, what's called the volume cap allocation request letter. It's not a request for cash. It's another federal income tax requirement for these types of projects, that each state is provided what's called the volume cap allocation, which is then allocated to counties based upon their population. And as Bill alluded to, I think Orange County is $12 million. So we had to ask for an increase, which is regulated by the Mid-Hudson Regional Council. James Kostenblatt, Bill, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
Reached out to you and asked that we basically resubmit the letter as a result of some of the changes that have happened in the last couple of months, which I prepared and we will submit. All that being said, we still have to come back to the board for final approval once they get their business deal put together. So essentially what we're asking for, or what they're asking for, is allowing Harris Beach as your bond counsel to resubmit the volume cap allocation request. And
I'm
it doesn't
looking at the letter
obligate
now.
us to do anything.
So at this instance, they would use up if we got that and we got it approved through ESD, it would bring us above that limit. We'd be able to potentially, through a resolution and through a positive vote, be able to do this. What would it mean going forward? We would not have any bond allocation left for any remaining projects, or is
The
that
remainder of the year.
yeah,
Through the end of the year, that's correct.
remainder of
That's
the
right.
year?
And Mike, most projects, the only projects, tax exempt projects that require volume cap allocation are affordable housing and small manufacturing. Small manufacturing, as we all know, doesn't happen. If you're a 501c3 borrower, you don't need volume cap allocation. It's for affordable housing, like this project, where the developers come in, acquire a project that is essentially past its economic useful life. They buy it, rehab it, don't increase rents, they get tax credits, and they borrow on a tax exempt basis.
So this would be eligible again in 2022 for somebody else.
Correct.
Or that allocate, or whatever allocation we have.
And essentially, Mike, what happens is if Orange County IDA or any IDA doesn't use their cap allocation, we will get a letter from the state saying, hey, we want it back to reallocate to other projects that may be happening in the state.
Okay.
So there's really nothing to lose here by submitting this request.
And Russ, can I ask, if they do increase the cap, does it go back down to at or around the level that they had set before, or does it stay up at that new level until changes? Or
no, it would be, it's allocated every year. So come 2022 or first quarter 22, we would be allocated a new dollar amount, probably around the same amount. And if another project comes along, and the board would consider that separate and distinct from this. But frankly, these projects are few and far between. So there's no reason not to at least consider it, in my view.
Yeah. And Russ, just to answer the chairman's question earlier, as to what we're requesting the increase to be, the new letter shows $18 million, which I know was a number, and of course you have more history with this project than I do, but it was a number that was thrown out. It's not in the most recent summary I have from Ryan from Walcaloner, but can you just talk about that number?
Yeah, so the original amount, I'm looking at the letter now from February. I don't have the supplemental letter in front of me. We did an up to $18 million number for cushion purposes. And so I think we leave that alone. And I don't have any reason to believe we won't get the cap allocation in my conversations and Bill's conversations with the regional council. And if the number comes in lower, essentially we just give that number back to the state for reallocation. It gives a cushion. So if for whatever reason the 14.2 or whatever, Bill, you spoke with the developer about is accurate, or it's not 18, that's fine. We would just give the allocation back to the state. It gives them a cushion versus basically having going back and wait through the state processes to get the higher number.
So when you say this is a Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council, they approve it or they recommend it to the state?
They actually approve it.
They actually approve it. Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be a presentation that would it be expected to make as a county?
No. The letter submission is essentially what is submitted, and then it goes before the regional council and it gets approved by Empire State Development, and then we would get basically a 2-paragraph letter saying we've been awarded that allocation.
And none of us are on the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council, so we don't have a conflict, I don't believe.
I am representing the county executive, but I'm a non-voting member.
Non-voting member, okay.
And I would abstain.
Okay, so I think we have one thing to do here tonight is to reaffirm that letter if we all feel like that. But I also have some questions about the project. Knowing that we're hitting up against a time frame where we're going to potentially lose one board member, I'd like to be able to talk about the request tonight, but I'd also like to ask some questions for staff to follow up on with the applicant. Obviously, I don't think we're ready to go forward with a final resolution tonight, even though we did the initial resolution, we've done the public hearing. I think it's heading that way, but I think we have a lot to understand in relation to this bond financing and getting the limit increased.
Mr.
I have a
Chairman,
couple-
I do want to make one, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to make one clarification that we have not authorized issuance of bonds to Walker owner at all. That's down the road. This doesn't impact that. If we request this increase and we decide not to give them the bonds, that's okay as well. Is that correct, Ross?
That's correct. Or the pilot or the sales and mortgage recording tax exemption. And from a practical standpoint, the way these affordable housing projects work, they close on December 31 of every year. There's so many moving parts to them. So we have plenty of time to vet the project, what they're asking for relative to the pilot, and seek final approval. They just take a lot of time to put together. It's not unique to Orange County. There's federal tax credits involved, and they just take a long time to put together from a banking standpoint.
All right, so I'd like to open this up to board members for quick questions in relation to the letter request to the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council to increase our bond limit to 18 million or up to 18 million. And then I'd like to, after we can potentially vote on that, I have a couple questions about the project that I'd like to just bounce off and maybe get some more information or have staff work on getting some more information on. So with time of the essence, board members, any questions or concerns or ideas in relation to the request to Empire State Development / Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council for this request? Hearing no questions or concerns, I'd like to entertain a motion to have staff and council put together a request to them in the form of up to $18 million in bond capabilities, and do it as quick as we can, because I know they're starting to meet for their next round as soon as possible. So I think they're meeting back up again soon. So let's get this. I'd like to be able to get a motion on that if at all possible.
I'll make a motion, Mike.
Thanks, John. I would second that. As me. Bill, can you call the roll if we have no questions?
Yes, sir. Mike Torelli,
Yes.
John Dowdett,
Yes.
Leslie Pieri,
Yes.
Vincent Odock,
Yes.
Paul Roskevich.
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes.
John, I know you may need to jump off, so there's not anything I think as we go down from 5 to 4, that would be, we have to, be cognizant of that if we're going to vote on anything. I don't know of any votes at this point, but John, feel free if you have to jump off at any time. I know you have a prior commitment coming up, but, thank you for doing what you can tonight. As for this project in particular, Bill, I'll ask, I'm not feeling comfortable with the pilot yet. And the reason why I say that is because in a scenario where they're not adding square footage, okay, there's not a new commercial tax rateable being produced. So with that said, I'd like to be able to better understand the history of their either tax situation, their property tax situation, their pilot situation, what the town of Walk Hill did previously with them. Is it currently still in effect? Has it expired? Those type of things, because I don't have all the information to be able to ask questions about it. So if there's anything that you know of today, or if we don't know, can we get so that we feel we have all the information in relation to this request for a pilot? The other ones, like a sales and use tax, I definitely understand that because they're going to be rehabbing the facility, which is nice. It's always nice to have rehabilitation of an older asset. It produces the longevity of the life of it. And obviously there's this connection to the affordable housing limits and components and requirements that are a part of that as well. And then if there's any mortgage recording tax exemption. So I'd like to better understand what the ask is from the applicant. And if you have it, great. If you don't, we need to get that.
I'll get further detail on it. Pardon me. The only comment I do want to make, even if it's just for the education of the board for this subject, is that not all pilot agreements are put in place in order to reduce or even abate, phase in property tax increases. Sometimes, in my understanding for this project, it's in this case, they're looking to stabilize tax payments, because without a pilot, you go to the will of the assessor every year, and those values can change. And sometimes that becomes a challenge in terms of cash flow or, what anticipating different tax bills every year. So oftentimes they're looking just to stabilize those, even if it doesn't result in any further savings. But I'll absolutely get all those details, but I just want to share that because that seems to be the approach here.
Yeah, and if you can get the history of what they have already received, because I don't think they received it through us. I think it was through the Wallkill IDA. And because of this bonding that they're looking to do, Wallkill has deferred it to us. So obviously we have a partner in Wallkill, but I'd like to better understand, what was the snapshot since it's been built? I know it's a little history lesson, but I think we want to be able to not only use it in this scenario, but we want to stay consistent with what we do moving forward. And we don't want to treat one different than another. And I think as a board, we need to have more information in regards to that. I mean, the sales and use tax is pretty simple. I mean, if they're going to renovate it and it's going to be 5 million and half of it's, materials that's taxable, we could put a number to that. That's pretty simple, I think. And we'll ask for that calculation as well. And some of this may be in the application. I don't have it up in front of me, but, on the pilot side of things, want to be able to better understand it. Are they looking for a reduction? You're saying stabilization. Does that mean flat over a period of time? And how long is it? And obviously we want to just double check with Wallkill to make sure that they understand what we're going to potentially be voting upon. Don't want to be in a scenario where, we do something and then they are, yelling and screaming at us. We want to be able to have partners with them because we have a bigger relationship countywide that we want to be able to profess throughout the entire county in relation and to keep it consistent. So anything you can do.
And Bill, I'm happy to help with that. I've done many of these projects across the state and typically, Mike, just to further that point, these projects, when a developer comes in, acquires and rehabs, they do not displace tenants. They do not increase rentals.
Yeah, that's all great.
And they ask for what's called shelter rent, which is typically a 30-year pilot based upon a percentage of what the rentals are. So Bill, I can certainly help you with that.
Terrific. And we haven't yet reached out to the town of Wallkill, but I'll do that to get that history. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we get the history, and then if we could say, what it's at today, what it's looking to be at. Is it the same type of thing with the special districts where they get everything, they get what's due to them and those type of things? And we just need to have a lot of that information so we understand it better.
Well, I can answer that question very quickly. IDAs can in no way, shape, or form, whether it's for affordable housing or for Amazon, impact special district charges. So that's it. Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Mr. Chairman, I have to drop off. I have 2 public hearings in Montgomery.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Want to let you know? Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right. Anything else further on this bill or any questions from the board in relation to this applicant? We'll look forward to them coming in front of us again in the future. They did do the public hearing where they made a presentation, and that's on our website. So if anybody wants to refresh themselves with that, that's out there. And we have obviously the write-ups from Bill in regards to not only the application, but the write-up that he did most recently in regards to it. So. And
I included a few pertinent documents, but I did not include a transcript of the hearing, but I'm going to respond to that email so everyone has that. I'll share that right now.
Yeah. Okay. Without any questions or concerns about this one, next on the agenda is any resolutions. I don't believe we have any resolutions, Bill, tonight in front of us.
No, sir.
All right, so we have to do that. Do we have a need for an executive session? Does council believe we have to talk about anything that is executive session worthy or something that they need assistance with or direction it? Or does any staff or board members have any?
I do not.
Okay. Board members, anything that you need to discuss in the executive session or any concerns that are executive session eligible that you'd like to talk about or move into?
No, Mike.
Okay. Any other board business? Anything else that anybody, board members and or consultants want to talk about tonight or bring up?
Yeah. Vincent?
Yes, Vince.
Yeah, regarding other 2 members of the board, how far is the process now in terms of getting in 2 more board members? We are 7.
I'll defer that to Director Paul Ruskevich, who's on the Orange County Legislature, and he heads the E&E Committee. Paul, did you want to give us a quick update on where the legislature is at with that?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick update. We have received several resumes, which we'll be looking at. We were going to try to do it this month, but we're going to have some more discussion in terms of who's going to bring those names forward to the legislature, and what kind of criteria we want to look for board members. Kind of formalize the process a little bit more before we move forward. So we'll probably be doing that next month.
Great, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we adjourn, just a couple quick things. Like I said in my report, we're going to probably schedule a committee meeting between now and the next meeting sometime. Potentially one of the ones that we have to tick off for our state requirements. So we'll have Bill working on that and scheduling that. Our board retreat / reorganization / vision plan type stuff. We're looking forward for a date with that. I know he's working on that, and that should be coming forthwith. And then we have next month's meeting as well. We'll continue to, as requested, both Bill and I will attend the E&E committees if requested to do so, to make sure that the Orange County Legislature has any information or can ask any questions of us in relation to the IDA. I want to say there's going to be a lot of positive stuff out there, I think, coming up. It's not always going to be positive, but we have some great projects that were done in the past. We look forward to the Legoland grand opening sometime this summer, which was a major thing that the Orange County IDA incentivized. The groundbreaking or the real construction start of Amy's Kitchen, which is also another project that is great that we are already incentivized, and those type of things. So there's going to be some really good positive things that I think that are going to be out there on stuff that either we did or our predecessors have done that I think, we can hang our hat on. So if there's anything out there or if there's any comments, please let me know, and we'll continue to move forward with what we have to do. Any other business before we close?
No.
With that, I'll entertain staff. Anything? Bill?
We're all set.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make it.
Thank you. Second?
Vincent?
Thank you, Vincent. Bill, call the roll on the adjournment, please.
Michael Torelli,
Yes.
John Dowdett,
Yes.
Leslie Pieri.
Yes.
I'm going to skip. Vincent Odock.
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Yes for Leslie, no problem. Vincent Odock
Yes.
and Paul Ruskevich.
Yes.
Great.
Motion passes. Just let's not
Right.
forget we have OCS FC next.
Great. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And